Hello, everybody. Steven Ruderman here with your Insomniac Lunatic Fringe Giants postgame show. The Giants have now dropped 4 straight and have dropped the first 2 in this series in Toronto to open the second half. The Giants didn't get shut out today, but it was another frustrating loss in its own right. The Blue Jays scoring 4 runs in the bottom of the 6th inning off Logan Webb en route to a 6-3 win. The beginning of the game was kind of interesting. Eric Lauer, who made the start for the Blue Jays, retired the first 13 men he faced today, 13 up, 13 down, but he had to throw a lot of pitches. The Giants were fouling a lot of pitches off him, working the counts off him, but they couldn't get on base. Logan Webb, on the other hand, was having to work in and out of trouble throughout the early innings. He didn't throw a single 1-2-3 inning today. The Blue Jays had runners at first and second with nobody out in the bottom of the first with Vladimir Guerrero coming up, and you're thinking, okay, this is going to be a complete disaster. First pitch, Guerrero chops one to Willy Adames, who turns a 6-3 double play. Bottom of the second, the Blue Jays had the bases loaded, but Webb got Nathan Lukes to ground out. Bottom of the third, he was able to have Vladimir Guerrero doubled off at first on a line drive off the bat of Bo Bichette. Bottom of the fourth, surrendered a leadoff base hit, but he didn't have to throw that many pitches. Webb only threw 54 pitches through the first 5 innings, but then in the 6th, it finally came crashing down on him. The Giants got on the board in the top of the 5th inning. It was the Giants' first base runner today. First hit, first base runner was a home run off the bat of Willy Adames. It was his 13th home run of the season. And it was a ball that everyone knew was a home run when it left the bat. So that puts the Giants on the board. It's 1-0. It's the Giants, also their first run of the second half. The Giants, of course, were shut out last night, getting 11 hits. First time they had gotten 11 hits and were shut out since August of 1959. The Giants would score another run in the 6th inning. Luis Matos led off with a double, and then he would get to third on a fly out by Patrick Bailey and then score on a sacrifice fly to right off the bat of Elliot Ramos. But the bottom of the 6th, the Blue Jays, they got runners to second and third, nobody out after Bo Bichette hit a leadoff base hit, and Addison Barger doubled into the gap in right center. Joey LaPerfido popped out, but then Ernie Clement worked a nice at bat, and he ended up getting a base hit to left. That put the Blue Jays on the board. And then just as Will Wagner did last night, he had a double down the right field line, knocking in a pair, putting the Blue Jays ahead. Tyler Heineman, the former Giant, was the Giants' opening day catcher in 2020. He hits a double. That knocks in a run to make it 4-2. And Logan Webb, he was able to get out of trouble throughout the afternoon because he is just that good of a pitcher. But he just ran into a brick wall in the bottom of the 6th inning, giving up 4 runs. Webb's final totals today, he gave up 11 hits, 4 runs, walked 1, struck out 1. Randy Rodriguez threw a scoreless bottom of the 7th, and then Heineman hit a 2-run home run off Ryan Walker in the bottom of the 8th. The Giants' offense, they just really couldn't get anything going. Willy Adames would hit his second home run of the day in the top of the 7th, but in the top of the 9th, Ramos singles on the first pitch of the inning, and you're thinking, okay, good start, but Rafael Devers, after fouling off a couple 2-strike pitches, buckles down on a slider down and in, a nasty one at that from Jeff Hoffman, the Blue Jays closer, and then Wilmer Flores grounds into a 6-4-3 double play to end it. 4 straight losses for the Giants, 2 straight to start the second half. The Giants now at 52-47, and we're seeing it again. Ben Romero, the public address voice of Aptus High School football. Ben, welcome. How are you, sir? What are your thoughts on today's game?
Well, thanks for having me, Steven. I'm feeling pretty bummed about today's game overall. I think that what did not help was that the Giants just had so many righties strike out today. I think that, they don't want to be too home run happy like they have been in the past couple of years or so, but you could definitely kind of see that today because, they didn't have anything going for the first 16 batters it was. First 13. Okay. And, just to kind of piggyback off what you said about, Willie, first pitch getting in that inning, getting a single, you're just thinking, okay, that could definitely lead to something. But, Wilmer grounding into a double play, he was actually the only one that grounded into a double play in today's game, I believe, because that's the only one that I see on here in the overall summary.
You are correct on that.
Okay, good. But yeah, I think ironically, what really, ironically, the Giants, in the sixth inning, I believe they helped themselves in the sixth inning, but ultimately that was, when they were done, in the 4 runs that they allowed, that 2-run homer certainly didn't help in the eighth. I thought that, you know, I think it's always good to see, Willie have a good day, especially going 2 for 3, given the slow start that he had in the to this season. But at some point, this team just has to come together, get themselves together in the second half here. So, I think it's a pretty disappointing start so far, but we're only 2 games in, and I think that as long as they don't get swept tomorrow, then morale shouldn't be too low on this road trip. So back over to you, Steven.
Well, thanks, Ben. What I worried about last night, because the Giants are hitting a lot of balls on the screws, but just right at guys, is that those are the kind of bad luck swings of the bat that can force guys to start pressing, to make unnecessary adjustments. And the combination of that plus the fact that Rogers Center is a live ballpark, that's what's happening. We saw this team execute the fundamentals to a T during their 24-14 start through May 6th, through May 7th. And we saw them execute the fundamentals very well in the final week and a half leading up to the All-Star break, but they hit all the atom balls last night. The one that really comes to mind was the ball off the bat of Matt Chapman, which went right to Laprofito. And so today it's a live ballpark. Willy Adames, it's 2 home runs. They're pressing again. They're trying to hit home runs, and it's not getting them anywhere. And I worry that this is what got the Giants into their slump in May. We've now lost 4 in a row, and we're starting to see it happen again. And hopefully, as you said, the Giants can get a win tomorrow and not get swept. Don't be surprised if they do. The Blue Jays are just a very good team, a team that, you look at them, they have great pitching, they have great situational hitting. They are not a power hitting team. They are a team that hits for contact. They play small ball. They play situational ball. They'll go gap to gap on you. Honest to God, Ben, I think they may be my favorite in the American League to go to the World Series. But you still have to beat the good teams, and getting swept, it won't be the end of the world, but man, would it suck, because you were 4 games over 500 after losing in Arizona on July 1st. And then you go on that streak and you get up to 9 games over 500, and then to fall to 4 games over 500 again. That would be really tough. But it very well could happen. But tomorrow, I wouldn't say it's a must win, but it's a game that if they don't win, it's not going to be good. We're at the point of the year where you can't be losing too many games. And I feel like, as I said, not a must win, but it's a win that it would be nice to have tomorrow, because you do not want to get swept coming out of the All-Star break. That's a really horrible way to start the second half. And it's, as I said, if they really go into a slump now, especially now that we're in the pennant race, and as teams like the Padres and others are getting hot and are pulling away, the Giants came into today's game a game and a half back of the Padres for the wild card. And now it's 2 games. And if the Padres win tonight in D.C. and they're playing the Nationals, it's going to be 2.5 games, because now this is the time of the year where the standings mean something. And if you start losing games and you start falling behind in the standings, that will really catch up with the team. And if this team is really pressing right now, and again, they're pressing, and getting home run happy can usually work in ballparks like Toronto or Atlanta, where the Giants are about to go. But if they get home run happy on this trip, they come home and play the Mets and the Pirates at Oracle Park, where we all know is not a place to hit home runs. You're going to get in big trouble. And if the Giants really start pressing after this road trip, and they go home and they're pressing against the team like the Mets, and then they go back on the road to New York and Pittsburgh, which are not home run hitting ballparks, this team could find itself in trouble really quickly. And by in trouble, I mean behind in the standings. I'm talking about 4, 5, maybe even 6 games back of the third wild card spot, of the nearest playoff spot. And then suddenly it's not looking good for your season. So the Giants they just need to calm down. They need to do what they were doing in the first half, play situational baseballs. Don't make the unnecessary adjustments. Yes, it sucked. They hit a lot of atom balls last night. It happens. Keep doing what you were doing last night. You just ran into bad. What happened was they ran into bad luck last night, and tonight they were pressing. Kyle is here. He said, yes, shorten up, FFS. You all know what that means. Kyle, of course, notes that this has been a very streaky team. Kyle says, I'm not as worried as you. It takes one win to heat up. And I'm not that worried either, to be honest. But this is not the time of the year where you want to start pressing again, getting home run happy again, and start losing a bunch of games. So those are my thoughts on it. The Giants will try to avoid the sweep tomorrow. Robbie Ray, he's been great luck for the Giants all year. He'll get the start for the Giants. Going for Toronto will be Jose Barrios. Now, some unfortunate news. Tomorrow's game will be on Roku. So if you do not have Roku, ladies and gentlemen, you are SOL. You are out of luck. Sucks to be you. So way to grow the game there, Rob. I'll be umpiring tomorrow in Rancho Cordova, so I don't have to worry about that. Now, again, if the Giants lose tomorrow, it's not the end of the world, especially with the fact that they'll be going to Atlanta. The Braves have not been playing particularly great. The Giants swept them in June. But you would just rather get the win tomorrow, Ben.
Oh, absolutely. And, looking at the schedule, they're going to Atlanta after this. And I think that, even though Atlanta's 43 and 53, something like that, to hypothetically speaking here, if they continued on, on their bad losing streak, I think it would just be the worst possible way to go back home to Oracle Park later this week, especially, you lose to a really good team and then, hypothetically you lose to, I'd say a mediocre below average team in the Braves, but they are, that would just be a very rough way to, to finish up the road trip. But I think that the Giants, just need to be in it for the long haul. And, I've been telling myself this the entire season. They will play as good as their best player allows them to, or their best players allow them to. Based on how far they'll go, that'll be based on how Jung-Hoo Lee does long term, how Willy Adames does long term, how Matt Chapman does long term, and especially if they get, if Rafael Devers, he's got to start hitting. So I think that, that would definitely be a bad situation to go back home from the road trip to, have lost all those games. But what do you think, Steven?
Willy Adames is starting to swing the bat finally after a very rough start to his season. Jung-Hoo Lee, the thing was Lee got off to an incredible start. He was using all sides of the field. And then for whatever reason, leading up to the All-Star break, he was just trying to pull everything. Lee has actually looked a little better in this series. He hit that line drive off the end of the bat in the third inning, but it was right to Bo Bichette. I feel like Jung-Hoo Lee, and we saw him make a nice two-strike adjustment yesterday, getting bunched in on a pitch in the second inning last night, dunking one out into right center field for a base hit. I feel like Lee is finally starting to come out of it. We need Lee to swing the bat. As Kyle said, Chapman needs to start swinging the bat. We need Adames to keep swinging the bat. I mean, Wilmer had a rough day today. But Wilmer's had a good season. We need Wilmer, of course, to swing the bat again, and we need Devers to swing the bat. And the question has been, who are the Giants' best hitters right now? Would you say?
Right this minute, Steven, it'd be a bit hard to tell, but I think that at this point, based on the averages, I'd have to say among the likes of Ramos and. Probably, I'd say that overall Ramos is probably the best hitter in the lineup right now. But he's proven himself to be the all-star caliber player that he is. I think it was last year that he mostly established himself as like an everyday player and not just a guy that you bounce around from Sacramento to San Francisco. And no thanks to Farhan on that, of course, but. But I just think that he's a cornerstone of the clubhouse, and that, like I said, the Giants are going to go as far as their best player will allow them to, and that also includes staying healthy. Now, I think that the Giants haven't had the worst luck this year with injuries, but they've had some problems here and there, like, most recently with Matt Chapman having a bit of his IL stint. But, knock on wood here, let's just hope that they don't have any big injuries second half, and that the bullpen doesn't, the bullpen's got to stay rock solid. The bullpen absolutely has to stay rock solid if they want to not regress to the mean and then some. Because the Giants, they cannot, given the big start that they had this year, I keep telling myself they cannot regress to the mean. They cannot regress to the mean. They can't get cocky and say, and based with their performance, and end up barely making the wild card, or not even making the wild card at all. And it sure is hell a lot easier to make the playoffs in this day and age in the game. But the Giants, they just need to keep getting away from that, from that mediocre culture that they had for the past several years. And I think you can really see that they're changing that under Buster Posey, but their record needs to show it.
No, absolutely. 100% with you. Agree on that. Kyle in the comments was saying how Ramos is too streaky. And Kyle says that Ramos is also hitting like 196 over his last 20 games. Sam Lubman and I, who hosted the Orange and Black weekend wrap on 95.7 this morning before the game. He and I talked about this last night. Even though Ramos had 2 hits last night, and his 2 strikeouts did not look good, Ramos is an incredibly streaky hitter. I feel like, though, he's starting to come out of it. And Kyle thinks that Chapman, Adames, and Devers are the best hitters. The Giants have a lot of talent in this lineup, Ben. I want to talk about the bullpen. Mm-hmm. Ryan Walker, I mean, this has been a very rough season for him. And today he gets rocked with the 2-run homer by Tyler Heineman. He can't put it together. We saw Randy Rodriguez once again pitch. You and I, Ben, were talking about during the game. And Kyle, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. What would everyone think about Randy Rodriguez perhaps getting a shot to close? Ryan Walker is not a closer. I think he's a legit late inning guy. I just think having that rough stretch in April and losing the closer's job really got to his head. That can really be that's something that, when you lose the closer's job the way Walker did, especially after earning it last year, that's going to be really tough on a guy. And we're at the point now where I wouldn't say just yet it's been a lost season, but we're approaching lost season status for someone like Ryan Walker, whose ERA is now 4.46. Randy Rodriguez has got as fastball in the upper 90s. His ERA now 0.84. I think at some point you got to give Randy Rodriguez a shot at closing because Duvall, look, I mean, I think Duvall has the stuff to be a closer, but we saw him struggle last year. This year, I mean, he's doing better this year than he did last year, but he's still not the dominant Camille Duvall we saw in 2022 and 2023. I think at some point you got to give Randy Rodriguez a shot to close.
Well, Steven, at this point, I really don't see why not. Like, why you wouldn't give Randy Rodriguez a shot at being the closer. This bullpen in particular this year just is blessed with so much talent, and it's not going to be perfect all the time, but part of being smart with the bullpen is, making sure that you've got the right guys in the right roles. And Randy Rodriguez, his stuff today was just nasty. He was getting all of his pitches down. He was, guys were swinging at just about anything he threw out. And he only pitched 1 inning, but that was lights out. Like, aside from the homers, here and there with the Giants scoring, I would say that was their true highlight of the game was Randy Rodriguez's performance today. But Ryan Walker did earn the role to close earlier this year, but I think the proof is in the pudding. Like, that just really hasn't worked out. And Duvall can be pretty streaky himself too. So, and I really don't see why you don't give a guy like Randy Rodriguez, who's got some of the nastiest stuff in the league, a shot at closing. But that would also, really call for some adjustment here and there. And I think that's what, Bob Melvin and the bullpen and, the rest of the coaching staff, they really need to hit home on that and really play very smart baseball if they really want to make a deep, respectable postseason run, because they have every ability to do so. They have every ability to make a deep playoff run, especially in this playoff format. they're not just breaking even. They're not just breaking even yeah, you know, we're not just breaking even here, folks. We want to actually do something. So I think that, yeah, the Giants, they'll go as far as their best player will let them go, and they just, they really cannot regress to the mean here.
I want to add about Rodriguez. The Blue Jays have struck out the least of any team in the league. I think they've struck out like 654 times. Well, I could be wrong on the exact number. There's a reason I think why the Blue Jays are my favorite to go to the World Series in the American League. They pitch well. They don't strike out. Bo Bichette doesn't even strike out much. And Randy Rodriguez was able to, against one of the better hitters in baseball in Bo Bichette, someone who I wanted the Giants to trade for last year at the deadline. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. This was the second out in the bottom of the seventh inning. He got into a long at bat. He gets the first two, he gets a called strike, and then Bichette foul tips one. Then he throws two balls, and then Bichette fouls two and takes ball three. He got him to go up the ladder on a high fastball, and this is again against a guy in Bichette who doesn't strike out that much, and one of the best hitters in baseball too. I think it is time, Ben, to give Randy Rodriguez a shot at the closer's role. I really, really do. And even though he gave up a hit, I would agree that one of the highlights today for the Giants, at least on the mound, was Randy Rodriguez. And you also have to, wonder about how he's going to do coming out of the All-Star game. I mean, the All-Star game has become a complete farce, but Sam was talking about on our show Thursday night how the Giants pitchers have a long history of struggling in the All-Star game, and if you get on that big stage and you get rocked like Randy Rodriguez was in the All-Star game, even though the All-Star game is not what it used to be, that can really affect a guy. I mean, Atlee Hammaker was never the same after giving up the Grand Slam to Freddie Lynn in the All-Star game in Chicago in 1983 at Comiskey Park. I was a little bit worried about Randy Rodriguez after he had the outing he had on Tuesday night in Atlanta, and to come out today against one of the best teams in baseball, against possibly the best hitting team in baseball, it was really encouraging to see that, and I think it is absolutely time to at least have the conversation about giving him the closer's role. So tomorrow the Giants will try to avoid the sweep. If you don't have Roku, I'm sorry, but it sucks to be you. As Kyle mentioned, it's the second straight Sunday of Roku.
Right.
Do you have Roku, Ben?
I believe my TV, like my Samsung Smart TV came with a couple. I think it came with that particular Roku channel, but because I had watched the game last week and I don't remember like subscribing to anything Roku. Like I used to have a Roku TV, but I don't anymore. But I had just been looking for the Giants game and then realized, shit, it's on Roku. But then I saw an option like in the main screen for my TV to watch the game. But I'd say that the broadcast was not up to my liking, but I think that's partially because we're just so spoiled with the announcers that we have and just the great job that they do, the production team and all that. So, I'll probably be listening to KNBR 680, the sports leader.
With John Miller and Dave Fleming.
David B. Fleming.
All right. The camera's starting to act a little weird here. All right, now it's better. All right, that'll do it for the Insomniac Lunatic Fringe Giants post-game show. The Giants will be trying to avoid the sweep tomorrow. It will be Robbie Ray against Jose Barrios. First pitch will be at 9:05, not 9:07, 9:05 Pacific, 12:05 Eastern. Or do they do it would be 12:05 Eastern because, I'm thinking they do the 24-hour Canadian. Okay, we don't need to have a conversation about it.
The game's going to be early either way.
It's going to be early.
We know that.
Who cares? All right. Just 9:05 Pacific, 12:05 Eastern. For Ben Romero, Kyle Foster, who contributed in the comments, for my boss, Lee Leonard at Sports Radio Service, I'm Stephen Rubin. Hope you enjoyed this edition of the Insomniac Lunatic Fringe Giants postgame show. Giants trying to avoid the sweep tomorrow. And I will not have a postgame for you tomorrow, but I will have our next postgame Monday after the Giants are in Atlanta. Let's hope the Giants can pull one out tomorrow. I'm Stephen Rubin. Have a good night, folks. We'll talk to you soon.